Hello and welcome. We are coming to you, I'm coming to you today to talk to you about, well, some of the events that some of us may not be fully aware took place during what we call Holy Week. In between Palm Sunday and Easter, there was quite a bit of things that took place. And all of them, I believe, can bring us into a greater understanding of our own journey, just the way that Jesus moved through his own journey of stepping into his destiny, which I spoke about yesterday as part of our Palm Sunday service, trusting and having faith in knowing that God would be our strength, our courage, our guidance through the journey. And yes, many people know about the Last Supper, uh, the resurrection, right? Like the crucifixion and the resurrection. But there's so many other pieces that took place, and so we thought this week we'd give you a little bit of insight into some of those activities and what they can mean for us. And so, one of the things that is interesting is people tend to know that Jesus entered into Jerusalem triumphantly and was received by the crowds into Jerusalem, which we celebrate on Palm Sunday. What many people don't realize that in the stories in the Gospels and in the stories of the Bible, Jesus actually doesn't stay in Jerusalem that day. In the evening time, he goes back to a nearby town called Bethany, which is a town that Jesus had gone to many a time. It's the town where he raised Lazarus from the dead. It's a town where Mary and Martha he visited. And so he knew of Bethany and was familiar with Bethany. And so he'd go into Jerusalem during the day and come back to Bethany at night, which to me is a really interesting way of recognizing, if we talk about Jerusalem as that higher state of consciousness, well, do I stay in that higher state of consciousness all the time? Or do I retreat to what is comfortable? Do I retreat to what is more known to me by going back to my own personal Bethany, that which seems more comfortable and really that where I'm at most of the time, the consciousness, the understanding, and the experiences that I am most of the time. And Bethany is named in that way after some fig trees and the noise of the fig trees that were around the city, the town, and that noise is said to almost sound like wailing, and so it's named after basically drama. And so it makes me realize, yes, I allow myself and I support myself in going into that higher level of consciousness, that higher state of being. And I tend to retreat into my drama. I don't know about you, but that seems to be a little bit of the story of my own journey. And I'd love to hear if that's something that you've also experienced. Now, once there in Bethany, the next morning, so let's say Monday, which we don't necessarily know if it's a Monday, but the next day, Jesus and the disciples and the apostles are going back to Jerusalem. And they pass through a side, there was a group of fig trees. It is written, but separate from a lot of where the other fig trees were, and those fig trees had no leaves. It wasn't the time of the year for the fig trees to be producing fruit. But separate from that was one fig tree that had a lot of leaves. And that meant that it should have had fruit. And so, as Jesus saw this on the way to Jerusalem, he goes up to the tree, wanting to take fruit from it, and realizes that although the leaves were there and adorned the tree and made it seem like it would have fruit, the tree did not have fruit. And he actually curses the tree and says that the tree shall forever be barren. Um, on the following day, so they keep going to Jerusalem. When they come back to Bethany. The following day, the apostles notice that the tree has withered. And it's a really interesting thing to just consider that that's one of the first things that is said to have happened the day after Palm Sunday, that Jesus saw a tree that should have been bearing fruit because of the appearance that it gave, and it didn't. He also, when he goes into Jerusalem that day, it's the day that he's upset with the fact that in the temple there are things being sold, and so he gets upset and turns over the tables, and in that process, really asks the people that are in the temple, or says to the people that are in the temple, that my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. And those two things, the fig tree and what takes place at the temple, is really all that we understand of that day before Jesus and the apostles retreat back to Bethany. And to me, the fact that Jesus isn't able to sort of stay in Jerusalem, doesn't stay in Jerusalem in that higher state of consciousness, and if I make it personal, that I'm not able to stay in that elevated higher state of consciousness, it's because there's work to be done. There's still things to do, right? Like I can elevate myself, vibrate at that level. But if I'm not cleaning all the other stuff up, I'm just going to retreat back to my old drama, my old ways of being. And so these two examples that take place on Monday remind me of the importance of really stepping into my practices. See, one of the ways in which we can view the fig tree is that so many times we have these beautiful words and this wonderful way of expressing what we say we believe, what we say we practice, but we're not really there, right? Like we speak about it or we understand it, intellectually, but we haven't fully integrated it into who we are. And so we give the appearance of having healed, having moved through difficulties. We give the appearance of having a higher state of emotional and spiritual intelligence. Because we haven't done the real work, it's not integrated, and therefore it bears no fruit. I recognize that there are times in my life where I haven't fully integrated. I've talked a good talk, but I haven't walked that talk. And the unity principle number 5 reminds us it's not enough to know these truths. We actually have to live them. Then moving into the temple, here is this temple that is meant to be a house of prayer. And here are individuals in the temple making it a den of robbers. And so that which is holy, that which is sacred, that which is a practice, that which is something that brings us into a greater understanding of God and our own divinity and the Christ nature that we are, without fully integrating it, again, it misses the mark. And that's the way that I see what takes place on this day, is that we've just sort of missed the mark. And until we really become much more not only authentic, but be in integrity with what we say we believe and the way that we want to show up in the world, we won't be able to stay at that higher level of consciousness, that higher state of awareness. And so, anyways, I just wanted to know what your thoughts are, how you understand some of what just took place after Palm Sunday. And hello, Noel and Amy. Yes, retreating back to our own drama. It is really interesting, isn't it, Amy? It's not only interesting, but if we allow it, or we are honest with ourselves, we can recognize that, it's part of our own story. And so as we move into our own resurrection experience, what would it look like, that resurrection experience, if we this week really became intentional about walking the talk, not just speaking about the principles, not just speaking about the practices, not just pretending to ourselves that we've got this, but we actually start to be in integrity with them more fully and share them, express them, embody them in our lives. See, that's part of the spiritual path, and that's part of the path that Jesus invites us into through the story of Holy Week. Again, at the end of this day, Jesus and the apostles go back to Bethany. Again, moving into the practices, working to raise our vibration, raise our awareness, uh, um, bring us to a sense of internal discernment and guidance from that still small voice, and not fully being able to anchor ourselves there and having to retreat back to what is more comfortable, more common, or retreating back into the drama of our experiences. The good thing is that, yes, Jesus and the apostles moved back to Bethany at nighttime, but guess what? Tomorrow, they go back into Jerusalem. And as they are moving back into Jerusalem, there are a few other lessons that we can take from the journey that they take, as well as the teachings that Jesus shares in Jerusalem the following day within the temple. So I really look forward to speaking to you a little bit more about that tomorrow. Make sure that you join us at 5:30. And let's see, Amy. Definitely part of my experience. Love the reminder to be more intentional and truly walk our talk. Anchor myself in the place of higher consciousness. Awareness comes more quickly as I move along the spiritual path. Yes. Yes. I guess, especially, Noel, as you're sharing, that path between Bethany and Jerusalem that Jesus and the apostles are taking daily, I imagine that it becomes an easier walk as they become more familiar with the path. And so moving from our drama into that higher state of consciousness, we remember the journey, we remember the pathway towards it, and we are able to move along it a little bit more quickly. So really interesting. I love those perspectives. Thank you so much, Amy and Noel, from sharing. And if any of you have any other thoughts, you can put it in the comments section. You can also, I'll be taking a look at it later on also. And be sure to join us tomorrow so that we can talk about what takes place next in that spiritual path of Holy Week for Jesus, his apostles, and really for us. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Take care. And thank you, Brenda. I appreciate you connecting with us.